Hi, and thank you for signing up for this free training. My name is Martin Bell, and I was previously Chief Architect of Rocket Internet's 100-day launch process, and I'm now the CEO of Bell Ventures. Overall, I've helped build over 120 companies, and I've led over 100 due diligences, and I was also the interim executive at high-profile companies, high-profile startups like Zalando and Delivery Hero. And over time, I've been able to spot patterns. And I've distilled this knowledge into a simple step-by-step process on how to quickly build a great company and launch within 100 days max. And this is called the 100 Tasks Venture Building System. It's a proven and battle-tested step-by-step guide and framework that has helped thousands of entrepreneurs build better startups faster. And I've applied this framework to dozens of startups myself. I've then meticulously refined the system to create, in my humble opinion, by far the most effective and streamlined process to build massively valuable companies like clockwork. And I've now decided to share this with the broader startup community, with you. But without further ado, let's get straight into this free training. So I just quickly want to clarify who this is for and who this is not for, right? If it is for you, then I encourage you to intently watch this video until the end, because it'll be, honestly immensely valuable to you. And if it isn't for you, then I honestly don't want you to waste your time. This free training is for entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, investors, consultants, or simply anyone interested in building his or her own startup. In this free training and case study, I will highlight how to systematically launch and scale your startup 3 to 5 times faster, all while saving money, of course, streamlining your business, fostering operational supremacy, being more data-driven, and focusing on the all-important disruption. You will learn how to quickly build your venture in a radically efficient manner in order to become a massively valuable company. So I really want you to take in all of the value that I'm going to provide, and I don't just want you to learn about it, I want you to be able to implement it, to put it into action, all in order to build a massively valuable company. Therefore, I've decided to give you some insane bonuses, right? And you'll get those bonuses once you finish this training and watch it to the very end. I can't even believe, to be honest, that I'm giving away this much stuff for free. You'll get an overview poster, an exact timeline of all the tasks you have to accomplish in order to build a massively valuable company. In fact, many of my clients have hung up this poster on their walls, just like that, and it's had a massive impact on them. Number 2, you'll get a checklist or a to-do list of all of the 100 tasks. Number 3, you will get 6 free tasks of the 100 tasks. Number 4, you will get the top 20 KPI dashboard, which I'm particularly proud of because it's a really very, very useful, plug and play Excel or Google Sheet document that you can instantly implement to start tracking your KPIs. Number 5, 3 great masterclass videos of my plug and play venture building process. So trust me when I say this. Just by having done this training and by having all of these freebies, all of these bonuses at your disposal, you'll already be ahead of 99% of your competitors. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight into the training. So, allow me to begin by showing you the big picture, and then I will get to the important nitty-gritty. So first, I'll show you the 3-stage 100 tasks venture building system and how it is structured. 3 stages: setup, launch, and then scale. Then I will give you the top 3 lessons that I need you to take away from this training. This is more holistic, yet super important. Then I will jump into the launch stage and the step-by-step nitty-gritty training. And after all of that, you're obviously going to get, all of the bonuses that I've promised. My plug-and-play venture building process consists of 100 tasks that need to be executed. That's why you might hear me refer to the system as the 100 tasks or something along those lines. Those 100 tasks are neatly divided into 3 stages: setup, launch, and scale. Now, as you can see, each of these stages is divided into 5 so-called sub-stages. And the setup stage is all about collecting and validating ideas. The launch stage is all about taking your validated idea to go live in its first market. This means creating the product and much more. The scale stage is all about turning your now live venture into a company that's lean, data-driven, fast, operationally excellent, and best practice in order to achieve the all-important product market fit. Therefore, in this free training, I will only focus on the launch stage, which is, for most of the people viewing this free training, the most tangible and applicable stage for them. And I'm guessing that most people watching are not venture-backed and don't have a lot of disposable time either. Therefore, this launch process is extremely valuable because it's actually better to have a small budget and to be under time pressure. No matter what, there are 3 core lessons that I want every single person who watches this free training to take away. These lessons are of utmost importance, and if all you take away from this training are these 3 things, but you really take action and implement them, not only will I be extremely happy, but more importantly, you will all get incredible results. Trust me, no matter what industry you're in. So let's go through the 3 takeaways. Top takeaway number 1, only do launch critical things. In other words, focus. You should avoid any nice to haves at all costs and hone down on the launch critical things with a laser-like focus. Top takeaway number 2, you should build out the function systematically and with an ambitious deadline. So this forces you to only do the launch critical things and to stay focused, tying right into the first takeaway. The ambitious deadline will add time pressure, which is of utmost importance due to Parkinson's law. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion, right? The following is actually a bit paradoxical, but most entrepreneurs don't understand this valuable lesson. People think that they need a huge budget and just abundant financing for their startups, even though the exact opposite is actually found to be true. Because if you're working under time constraints and with limited financial resources, you will be forced to move fast and to focus on the truly important things, which will inevitably lead you to building a better product and finding actual product market fit faster. Top takeaway number 3, start tracking KPIs as soon as possible. Look, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Makes sense, right? So most founders feel like they're just, simply wandering in the dark because they're not properly tracking integral KPIs in most functions of the business, and they're just honestly miles away from having a data-driven culture. For most founders, this is the case. And this leads to horrible decisions, bad judgment, and is all in all a huge burden to the success of your startup, if not the biggest burden. So not being 100% data-driven across all functions means that you're literally relying exclusively on luck. Instead, you should be relying on the scientific process by using insights derived from accurate data to your advantage. So I'll reference these 3 key lessons a lot because, like I said before, I really want you to have these lessons deeply ingrained. Launch stage overview. As you can see, the launch stage consists of 5 substages. Let's jump right into the staff temporarily substage. Staff temporarily. This substage is very different for a lot of people, so therefore I'll just be flying over this stage. For example, if you're a startup tied to a launchpad, then your core team will come from the launchpad. On the other hand, if you're bootstrapped, then that core team might, just be you, or you and a couple of co-founders, right? And if you're venture-backed and have enough funding, you can start aggressively hiring right away. But if you're bootstrapped, then this substage is more about hiring, the right freelancers, for example, that'll, for example, flesh out your product vision. You start with a strong complementary core team. Often, this is just you and a couple of co-founders. Make sure that the co-founders and the core team complement one another. For example, that your weaknesses are someone else's strengths. Next, you define your core functions in the target org chart and you flesh out your team vision. You can use the target org chart spreadsheets for this, but I'll explain how you can get these later on. You then come up with the requirements that are needed for each function so that you know what and who you're searching for when hiring or outsourcing your core functions. Now keep in mind that many functions can also be outsourced. Therefore, we actually have two roadmaps when staffing or building out your functions. We have a hiring roadmap and an outsourcing roadmap. Typically, the more bootstrapped you are, the more you outsource, and the more funding you have, the more you hire, in order to vertically integrate your entire process for maximum efficiency. Next, kick off hiring to fully staff your target org chart and flesh out your functions. For that, use a two-step vetting process to hire both employees and outsourcing agents. You start with an initial vetting phase where all of your applicants land, and then you distill the best applicants into the second phase. In the second phase, you'll conduct interviews with the applicants and then compare them in depth. So it's of utmost importance to have the hiring process well structured and to be able to compare all the candidates in one holistic document or in one holistic tool so that you can hire fast and efficiently without having anyone slip through the cracks. So there are three major lessons that you should know about while hiring. 1. Hire top-down. This means that ideally you hire the boss or the team lead who then can shape the team, who can hire the team. In an ideal world, in an ideal case, the team lead that you hire already brings a team. That would be perfect. But hiring top-down allows the team lead to shape his team to his or her liking. If you already have the people before you have the team lead, then that can lead to some friction. So better top-down if you can. Lesson number 2, don't just wait for applicants to reach out to you. Try finding the best people you can and proactively reach out to them. That means outbound recruiting is better. Because you don't want to rely on luck, right? And you should leverage networks like LinkedIn or other communities and online platforms to proactively search for candidates that fit the best for you. Lesson number 3. It's better to hire a good fit fast than to hire the perfect fit slowly. We go into a lot more detail on hiring and finding the right employees and outsourcing partners, and also on how to onboard them and integrate them into the company culture in the full 100-task system. But this exceeds the scope of this video. So while hiring, you should also track your progress using a hiring and outsourcing roadmap. These roadmaps should be well connected to a so-called HR independence dashboard that visualizes your hiring progress. Once you're done setting up the hiring process, you start building out your MVP while you continue making hires and fleshing out the functions. Next, you're going to have to develop your MVP, your minimum viable product. The second substage of the launch stage, develop MVP, is all about defining and then realizing your product vision. It's your MVP, or minimum viable product, that you will launch with. Let's explain this stage task by task and then illustrate it through a case. So the first task in the develop MVP substage is complete competition matrix. To define your product vision, the best thing to start out with is to complete the competition matrix for your product. Filling out the simple matrix will help you decide on the key features of your product. More specifically, you will cherry pick features from your best competitors in the space that you want to enter. And after doing that, you will come up with new features that none of your competitors have. And finally, you'll use the PIE framework, P-I-E framework, to prioritize your pre-selected features. That will force you to decide on the most critical features for the MVP 1.0 that you will launch with. Thus, the competition matrix is a structured and insightful way to define the positioning of your features. After completing your competition matrix, the next task at hand is specify MVP. Based on the features you decided on for your MVP in the previous task, the product lead starts to specify the product and its features in its entirety. That entails the following. gathering requirements from any business stakeholders, i.e. non-tech team leads, like from your marketing, operations, and finance teams, to translating the requirements into technical specifications in really granular detail, and 3, ensuring the specs are customer-centric. It's incredibly important in order to satisfy your business stakeholders and to make it technically feasible in the time you have available, and only to really do the must-have features, right? Not the nice-to-have features, only the must-have features. Importantly, this task is the first of a series of tasks that describes the all-important product development process. Here's an overview. Number 1, specification. Number 2, development. And number 3, testing. So let's take a closer look into what else goes into the product development process. In the specification phase, after specifying your MVP, it's time to beautify MVP. That means that the product you specified is going to be fleshed out. That means it begins to take concrete shape visually. More specifically, you'll do the following. You'll develop your brand Bible. That means you will define your venture's corporate identity in order to bring the right emotion into your product. People love this because that brings the right brain into the product. It's so critical. You'll also create and design wireframes. That means that if your product is a software product, then you will create wireframes that show the user experience of your entire customer journey. If your product is a hardware product, then you will create a product design drawing to not only visualize it, but to also evaluate the product's feasibility. Finish logo and creatives. You will develop a logo that is a word and design mark, right? So both word and design. And you will also make creatives for, for example, your app or your product's physical packaging. And so all of, these creatives will inject life into your designs and your wireframes. And once you've systematically specified and beautified, put design systems into place for your MVP, it's time to create basic prototype. You then build a simple prototype whose purpose is for you to gather feedback early and often. It's so critical. Make sure to define a good test to focus on getting feedback on the most important attributes. Then adjust your MVP specs or specifications according to your learnings. So examples of some rudimentary prototypes are, for software, it's to develop to develop a partly interactive prototype, like a click dummy. For an app or for website development, you can do that with InVision or other cool tools. For more complex projects, like those involving AI or blockchain, create a preliminary functional model using things like Tayerion, TensorFlow, or IBM Watson. For hardware, to make sure to develop a temporary ready-to-use prototype. For objects, use CAD, computer-aided design, or 3D printing. For use cases under changing conditions, use isometric or 3D simulations for testing that. The next phase of the product development process is development. Develop MVP. So this is really a mammoth task, right? So here the development team fulfills the vision laid out by the product manager. Recall that this task is the second step of the all-important product development process. Specification, development, testing. If yours is a software product, then a few key players will be involved. First of all, your technical architect should use the specs or specifications and the feedback from your prototype to write a detailed architectural plan for further development. Second, your database or BI engineer should design a suitable database for your website, your software, or your app. Lastly, your developers or engineers should write the code for all components to develop the product. If yours is a hardware product, your team should review and improve all designs, all materials, and all components, depending on the feedback from the prototype that you've gotten. Accordingly, you should adjust your planning on production and costs with your manufacturers or suppliers. Then, recalculate all key figures of your final version and develop the product accordingly. The third and final phase of the product development process, testing, will be handled much more in the scale stage. Now, let's jump right into a case to make this a bit more tangible and applicable. Case: fintech startup profiting from its differentiated positioning. So earlier this year, when I coached Rodrigo on taking his fintech idea to market, we focused heavily on this substage. He had decided on a business model that he wanted to pursue, but he was really just at the beginning of its whole go-to-market. His goal was to capture a niche market in a hot space where customers were completely underserved. Ideal, right? First in his home country, and then, when that case is proven, to rapidly expand into other countries. The challenges facing his business idea were just enormous. The market he wanted to enter was extremely crowded with many heavily financed, and when I say heavily financed, very heavily financed, and very advanced players that were doing similar things. At first glance only though, at first glance. So we honed in on the task complete competition matrix. The solution to finding and capturing a beachhead for his business idea lay in that one single task. So we first decided on who the top 3 competitors are that he most admires. He chose N26, Revolut, and Monzo as the most innovative neobanks or mobile banks. Then we defined the various feature sets along which he wants to compare those players. We selected feature sets like the sign-up process, the account, the transaction, and a few other important ones. Next, we wrote down all features for each feature sets, and we compared them across the 3 competitors. We then cherry-picked the best features that we want to have an MVP 1.0 at go live at the end of the launch stage. After that, importantly, we thought very deeply about what new feature sets and specific features that none of those top 3 competitors have, that which his business model should have. This step is absolutely critical because it's this one that differentiates you and allows you to capture a market that others are not capturing, right? You will find all the things that they're not doing. So that's a very important creative process. So then we evaluated all features, those cherry-picked from others, right? And the brand new ones from us, using the PIE framework, PIE. Lastly, we used the final PIE score combined with Rodrigo's vision to make the tough decision of which features are in MVP 1.0 and which are going to be in later versions, like version 1.1 or even much later, version 2.0. The results of completing the competition matrix were simply amazing. Fundraising became easy because Rodrigo preempted investors' questions about entering a crowded market. He would take his competitors' best features and offer new features by going into a slightly different market. And so due to this upfront investment and planning, not even a huge investment to be honest, Rodrigo launched in a market that was completely up for grabs. It was a complete niche market. So thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you found my walk down memory lane useful. I'm excited to continue to fill this channel with experiences that will help founders everywhere find success in their building efforts. If you want more of the startup building resources that we're building with this channel, I recommend that you subscribe to this channel and that you also check out 100tasks.com. There you'll find a bunch of different content that can benefit both you and your idea. See you guys next time, and in the meantime, happy building.